2006 must have been a busy time for Relic Entertainment. Along with releasing a brand new game, Company of Heroes, Relic aspired to make a second expansion pack for Dawn of War, which would add even more content to the game than Winter Assault. The studio set out to add 2 brand new playable races, a ton of extra skirmish maps, and a campaign which would let you play as all 7 of the races in-game. Talk about ambitious! Even Winter Assault's campaign was technically just 2 halves of a full single player. How would they handle a task like this? But in just over a year after Winter Assault's release, we were given Dawn of War Dark Crusade, which was packed with surprises even under the cover. Let's see how well this game delivers. Probably quite easily, because the box is pretty compact.
Pat feels he's a really happy man.
Well, the dark is certainly front and center from the get-go, because it's nighttime. The game has a new opening cinematic which makes a great introduction to one of the new races, as undying, uncaring, and seemingly unstoppable killing machines overwhelm a group of the noble Space Marines. It's a great tone setter, though I can't exactly say the Space Marines were handling the situation very well. They sent the fucking cameraman to charge the giant war machine. Did he even have a gun? Why is burning the robot not working? Heading into the campaign, and oh, thank God there's an easy difficulty. Don't get me wrong, Winter Assault's challenge was one of its strongest points and added a lot to the experience, but it's nice to have the option to take things easy. Still, this is something I'll get to later. For now, it's story time. The quiet colony of Cronus sits on the very edge of the Tau Empire, boasting both a human and Tau population. Oh, and also orcs, because those are everywhere. However, Cronus harbours a dark, long-held secret as a Necron tomb world, and beneath the deserts of Cronus, an army of ancient, soulless machines would awaken to eradicate all life in the galaxy. In typical fashion, the Eldar, who fought the Necrons in the past, send a strike team to stop the Necrons, because, well, wiping out all life in the galaxy is a pretty big deal. The Gods of Chaos want to be in on this reunion of the Old Kids Club, so the Wordbearers Chaos Legion join the fight to represent the ruinous powers, and to take revenge for a battle 10,000 years ago on the very same planet. Even though the Ultramarines aren't on Cronus anymore. I guess Eliphas's dwarf tier grudge was against the planet itself rather than Captain Johnny or whoever. The Tau Empire feel it's their responsibility to stop their people from being murdered by the 2 biggest bads in the galaxy and try to intervene. However, the Imperium of Man has other ideas, and takes this opportunity to liberate Cronus, while also hunting down Farseer Toldir for definitely not being the canon victor of Winter Assault. Making his return from the same game is Warboss Gorguts, forming a new war from Cronus' feral orcs, and fighting things. But he wouldn't be the last to arrive, nor the last familiar face, as the Blood Ravens chapter make their return to reclaim relics from their chapter's mysterious past. These relics are considered so valuable that they cross swords with the Imperial Guard already sent to Cronus, and with neither army willing to swallow their pride, they too are forced to face one another. Yeah, this happens in 40k sometimes. Once you pick your faction and go through these cutscenes, you're not greeted by a Mission 1. Instead, you're given this. A big fucking map! And here is where relics start to show the tricks up their sleeve. Instead of a sequence of missions glued together by cutscenes, Dark Crusade's campaign is something more...
Welcome to the single-player campaign for Dawn of War.
Dark Crusade's campaign is something more akin to a board game or a game like Civilization where you move across a map of the overworld. Your objective is to destroy each of the other race's strongholds to conquer Cronus, and to reach them you need to travel across the planet's surface. Each province on the map is conquered through a skirmish battle on one of the newly added maps, but there's a few notable differences between playing a match in skirmish mode and battling in the campaign, however. Since the other races also claim provinces, you'll find you'll have to defend the territories you've conquered, and the game will put you back on the map with all the structures you built intact from where you last left off, but also facing a lot more enemies than before. So when playing a battle in the campaign, you're not just playing to destroy your enemy, you're also trying to bolster your defenses for the next counterattack, which makes for a dynamic which you can't find in the skirmish mode. You're able to garrison units for better defenses, recruit honor guard to bolster your army for a small fee, and upgrade your commander's war gear to make them a 1-man, 1-woman, 1-orc, 1-robot, 5-man army in the Imperial Guard's case, because regular human beings... Stronghold assaults are more reminiscent of the missions from the other 2 games. Their cutscenes, level design, and atmosphere are excellent characterizations of both their race and their playstyle, and you have to guide your troops through heavily entrenched positions which use the strengths of each race to their advantage. One of the things I like about the Strongholds is hearing the banter between the commanders. They have thoroughly entertaining dialogue which can be tense and gripping, but also genuinely kind of funny. Yet it's still able to fit into a lot of the writing that exists in 40k's canon.
For the greater good.
The greater good is coming to you from my bolter, alien.
Do the deaths of your soldiers mean so little to you?
Are you that mad? Do the deaths of yours mean so much to you, alien? Are you that weak?
Even if its stories never excelled like big games out there, Dawn of War always had great characterization. So I think this setup uses the strengths of Dawn of War's performance and writing to their best, without having it be bogged down by an alright story. You know, it's not going to win any BAFTAs. There's the archive feature over each province and at the end of every stronghold, and it actually makes for some really nice expanded world building. But other than that, almost everything comes from Mr. Narrator and the Seven Stooges. The story does take a back seat for Dark Crusade. I mean, we never find out where all the civilians went. Maybe they all got conscripted, or they left, or they died. I mean, there's that one area in one map where there's a shitload of corpses, and I don't know why they're all there. It's just weird that they're all there. Grimdark. The campaign isn't without its problems, though. While a lot of skirmish matches can be beaten in as little as 5 minutes, Stronghold missions can take hours, which is a pretty jarring shift. Easy difficulty is one of those bad kinds of difficulty modifiers, where instead of using the easy AI which has always been in Dawn of War skirmish mode, easy mode gives your units over double their base health and reduces the enemies down to a quarter. Look at this shit, this is ridiculous! I'm outgunning the tower's orcs, I'm steamrolling Space Marines with 2 squads of fucking guardsmen, and I don't think I even lost a single member, let alone unit, after 2 hours worth of matches on this fucking mode. This is so frustrating to me when I'm trying to recommend it, as I can't tell a newcomer to RTS to just play it on easy mode, because even easy difficulty needs to have some challenge in it, otherwise people will just walk away from the game unfulfilled and unsatisfied. Despite that though, I think the new campaign is a major improvement over the old ones. You can pick and choose your battlegrounds with the option to avoid missions you may not enjoy, and there's more replay value through the randomness of enemy behaviour and a choice to play as different races. Speaking of which... The first of the 2 races added to Dark Crusade are the Necrons, a drastically different race from the other crude, vile vermin which plague the galaxy. The Necrons are robotic undead skeletons who want everyone to be not undead skeletons. So imagine the Reapers before the Reapers were a thing, and if their motivation wasn't stupid and contrived. In-game, they mostly consist of powerful heavy infantry and skimmer vehicle units, which are all spawned from a HQ building which turns into a mobile armed fortress at the end of their research line. One of the unique things about the Necrons is that they don't use the requisition resource gained from strategic points, instead building listening posts to decrease the spawn time of their units. The Necrons' playstyle fits their personality pretty well in my opinion, a slow, unstoppable force which doesn't like to just lay down and die. They can be genuinely terrifying to fight. Flayed ones are a scary spectacle to behold, but once you get used to the game, it's the other units that you begin to fear. Even in the Stronghold missions against these guys, your objective basically boils down to plant this bomb to bury the fuckers and—
Oh shit! Get the fuck out of here! What are you doing? Go! Fuck! We're all dead! Get the fuck out!
On the other side of the coin is the Tau Empire, who in contrast to the Necrons are the youngest major faction in 40k. The Tau's forces largely consist of high-tech soldiers with powerful ranged weapons and alien auxiliaries skilled in melee combat. What's unique about the Tau is that their tech tree splits into 2 around the second tier. You can choose the path of Montkar, which grants you powerful battle suits and the Hammerhead gunship, which are a lot of fun to use, or the path of Kayun, which lets you deploy more Kroot mercenaries, but also provides more upgrades for your other Tau units to make them extremely good. Since both troops are only really good at either melee or range, you usually want both in your army to complement one another. Because while it's pretty fun to field a volley of pulse rifles, the AI has a tendency of not letting you get away with that shit. Mostly through cheating, but don't tell Relic. Shh. Much like Winter Assault, the existing races also gain new units which all fit into each other's tropes much like before. Heavy weapons teams strengthen the Imperial Guard's defensive capabilities, Grey Knights are great escorts for your demon-killing commanders, and Eldar Harlequins are fast, hard-hitting, and annoying as shit. Flashkits finally give your orcs a solid ranged unit and are pretty much essential now, and the Demon Prince lets you have not 1, but 2 colossal demons in your Chaos army to stomp everything with. Dark Crusade certainly makes a lot more drastic balancing changes than Winter Assault, however. A lot more limits have been put on spawning certain units, which is kind of upsetting because you can't have fun with an entire army of Terminators or Kasrkin now, and other units are barely used due to an off-putting cap limit. You do get the option to perform some other pretty crazy tactics now though. Units can now attack while infiltrating, which was probably added to make the Tau stealth suits a lot more useful, and it can result in some pretty fun times. The Free Sluggers upgrade for orcs can result in some hilarious situations, as is having 100 Chaos Space Marines running around the map completely invisible, and being able to scan any area of the map as the Imperial Guard makes bombarding enemies with basilisks a spectacle to behold. Emperor bless our men and the hearing they've sacrificed to rain death upon the enemy. For those cranking the difficulty up or wanting to play more competitively though, it starts to become pretty clear that some races were made more equal than others. The Tau, Necrons and Eldar make up the triumvirate of Jesus fucking Christ, what is this bullshit, and I'm not just saying that because they're glowy and shiny and I'm jealous. The Necrons feel like the result of the designers going, what if we had this cool ability for this unit? For every unit in the army. The way they did try to balance the Necrons was to make them really fucking slow, which actually just made them really boring to play as. Seriously, do not play as the Necrons if you're jumping into Dawn of War for the first time. Friends of mine have had their impressions of the game completely ruined by this. Meanwhile, many of the units for the Tau have an extremely powerful shtick for most of their base units, such as starting units which can immediately infiltrate, or bread and butter riflemen having longer range than most sniper units. These units are pretty expensive playing as the Tau, but the AI is not a merciful being, and it cheats, making their stronghold a nightmare if you're unprepared due to them having both sides of their tech tree. The Eldar seem to take the crown though, and I'm not even talking about stuff like fleet or foot or the crap ton of useful research options. The AI is vicious with these guys, to the point where the province before the Eldar stronghold is harder than the stronghold itself. Even after 10 years, they've never quite been fixed. Pray that whoever you're playing against online isn't using these guys, because they are probably really good and they are probably not interested in joining the greater good.
I long ago surrendered hope of anything being easy, Commander.
Something I've never seen talked about is the general look and feel of Dark Crusade compared to the other games. In terms of the environments added, many of the new maps of Dark Crusade take the form of deserts and plain or temperate environments, which were a surprising rarity beforehand. Now, it might just be that I have a ridiculous amount of hours locked into these games, but I feel like it has a unique atmosphere to the others which can be kind of subtle by comparison. It's probably the colour scheme that does it, like that sweet sap green colour which dominates the scheme.
Add a little touch of permanent red to it now, just to change the flavor.
I think a lot of effort was put into making the environments rich and detailed too, as Dark Crusade's broader variety compared to the other games shows this at its strongest, even though a lot of it is missed from the top-down perspective. I mean, hey, did you know there were little tunnels down there? Yeah, what do you think that was? Just a puddle in a ditch? No, these are legitimate canal systems and waterworks in the living, breathing world. I mean, what do you think, this is just a game or something? Sound-wise, there's not a lot to comment on. The two new races themes sound cool, and the variants of each race's theme used in the Stronghold missions are actually pretty good. They convey a lot of the underlying themes of how each race perceives the situation or their attitude to the conflict in general. I can't say much about the voice work though, and that's not a surprise considering half of the new units just make eerie sounding beep boops. The Tau sound exactly like people expected them to. That's it. The new units for each race have performed really well, but I think most of the spotlight goes to the commanders, which I've already discussed. There is just no contest when Eliphas the Inheritor has a voice like poisoned velvet cake.
The false emperor has failed you again, Governor. Perhaps it's time to embrace a new deity.
Winter Assault was already an impressive expansion, but Dark Crusade blows it out of the water. We get a broader look at the 40k universe, a choose-your-own-adventure single-player that's fresh and unique, and refined visual tweaks which avoid feeling dated. The Tau and Necrons are two awesome new additions to one of the most brutally fun RTS games ever made, and both the campaign and skirmish mode are jam-packed with everything you need to return to the 41st millennium. Where would I put Dark Crusade on a numbered scale? I think its major problems are too glaring to try and sneak it into the 9 out of 10 club, especially considering what came out around the time, but it's still a thoroughly entertaining, well-made game which improves nearly everything its predecessors stumbled at. So 8.9 out of 10? Arbitrary as fuck, I know, but you know what else is arbitrary as fuck? Having to install the other games just to play as the existing races online, even after GameSpy's death. Don't let that put you off though. Dark Crusade is easily the definitive version of Dawn of War, and it stands among some of the best RTS games ever made. If you're only planning on playing one Dawn of War, this is the one to grab in a Steam sale or rescue from the attic of a charity shop. With Dawn of War starting to come together as a complete experience, barring a few exceptions from 40k, Relic decided it was time to move on to creating a brand new experience with the IP and exploring what could be done with the gameplay formula of Dawn of War. So with Dark Crusade thoroughly covered, I hope you join me again next time as we jump 3 years ahead into Warhammer 40,000 Dawn of War 2.
Aren't you forgetting something?
No, I'm not forgetting anything.
Put that stupid fucking thing in every shitty skit ever where you're like, hey, I don't know what you're talking about.
Look, no, I don't want to cover Dawn of War Soulstorm. There's not really much worth mentioning in it. It was really underwhelming. I'm already kind of tired of Dawn of War 1, and what are you doing with that needle?
There be no rest for the wicked.
No, please,
No
I don't want to
dreams,
go through
only
Soulstorm.
tears
I don't
now.
want to play Soulstorm.